Hey folks, Stray here, and I've re-recorded and deleted this video like 8 times already because I wasn't sure how I wanted to do it. I know I wanted to do this video, I just wasn't sure how to go about it. So if you're seeing it now, clearly I figured it out. Today I want to talk about using parsing tools like ACT as a way of self-improvement for you and your static. So we're going to talk about uh, exactly how to use the information from a log once it's uploaded to FFlogs to better yourself or your static or make progression easier. So we're probably going to walk through just a basic walkthrough of how to navigate the FFlogs site, some useful areas to look at, and how you can translate that to improving your overall rating experience. I think because of the nature of my content, my target audience, I'll frame it around this way. You've just finished a raid for the night, somebody from your group has uploaded the logs, you want to take a look, see where you can improve or where the group can improve. So you head to fflogs.com, that's where all this is stored, and you'll want to find your log. You can find this pretty easily. You can either use the search bar and type in your name, so I'm Stray Wolf Halicarnassus, so I'd be right there. Or if you have an account with the website, you can just do the drop down menu and find the character you want, and you can go to your profile that way. From here, you'll find the fight that you guys just did. Say it's Proto Carbuncle. You'll click on the Proto Carbuncle, and you'll have all of your logs that were uploaded of that fight. If this is your first few times, it'll be a nice short list, hopefully. Alternatively, if it is a list like this, you can sort it by date. If you click on it twice, you'll get the most recent date, and then that'll be the log that just got uploaded. You can click on the log itself, and it'll bring you to a menu like this. This is the average logs page that we're going to be working with, and I'll take you guys through some important parts of the tabs up here on the top, and how to get the most out of the information presented to you. Now, everybody loves the damage done screen. It's the thing that's talked about most. It's the first screen you're presented with when you look at a log, and it's got all the pretty colors. There are a few things to note with the damage done screen that I think would matter greatly to you guys. And the first of those is ignore the pretty fucking colors on the side. These do not matter. These are your parse percentile, and these are directly indicative to your ranking on the site. But those are also being put next to and compared with people who are in BIS gear, who are actively competing for those rankings, who are on statics, all with BIS gear actively competing with these rankings, who do full uptime strats, and who exclusively upload deathless runs, or even potentially some groups are even more serious and only upload good crit runs, because crit is an RNG factor that affects parsing in the upper levels. So you're being compared against all of those criteria, and if you're not meeting those criteria, you're not going to be competing on the same level playing ground. And that is fine. If you're not competing, these numbers are irrelevant to you. Grays, greens, whatever, you could be gray as fuck and you can clear. Our Dark Knight here got a gray. I had no problems playing with them. I don't think they died to any mechanical failure or anything. Let me check before I talk out my ass. Yeah, they failed Devour once and died. That's it. That was their only failing. They got hit by Devour and eaten. Didn't have any problems with the player. They still cleared the content. So these colors are irrelevant unless you're actually competing for parse ranking. After that, you can take a look at who played what job, how much damage they did. This is great to know what jobs are strong right now. You can look at this at a wider graph elsewhere on the site. Otherwise, you can look at your comp, your particular static comp, figure out who's doing the most damage, and then you can play around them. So if you have stuff like an Astrologian giving out their cards on a single target basis, or if you have a Dragoon in the comp like myself, if I looked at these logs and this was my static, this is just a PF log, but if this was my static and I saw that this machinist was doing 200k more damage than even me, I would probably be jamming my tether on my machinist every static night to help maximize damage. So that's an effective way to look at that. This next category that's important is active. This is the percent of the time that you are active in the fight, and by active, the game reads that as casting spells, right? Rolling the GCD, using your weapon skills, your off global cooldowns, doing damage to the boss, auto attacks, anything like that. If you are engaged in combat with the boss, actively doing something, that is your active time. Uh, there are very few fights in the game that are full 100% uptime fights, and so that active time on that basis, plus human error or lag, will mean that you'll probably never see 100% active on this category. It's just um, not impossible, improbable to see that. Instead, you're going to want to shoot for something that's generally in the statics that I'm in 95 plus, but in more learning oriented groups, if you're focused on mechanics and not doing damage right away, 90 plus is a good range to shoot for. Hell, like our Dark Knight even had a death and was like on the ground for a little bit, they're still above 90%. Boom, perfect. So you want to look for like a 90+% active time. If you're getting anything below that, you probably need to revisit your ABCs and kind of get more comfortable. Maybe hit a striking dummy, get more used to rolling the GCD while moving around. You know, just kind of run circles around a striking dummy, roll the GCD and step out, and then back into engagement range. Just play with your movement while keeping the buttons going. Get comfortable on your rotation itself so you don't have to focus as much on your hotbar. You could focus on the fight going on around you. Those are some ways you can use the active percentage to increase your rating. After that, we have the two categories of DPS and RDPS. This DPS category is the true damage that you did just taking this, you know, the 4.92 million of this machinist broken down over the length of the fight. Boom, he did 10,000 damage per second. That's just the raw value. RDPS is a metric that weighs how much you contribute to the fight in a sense. So regardless of how much damage you did, your contribution can be higher. Like myself, I did 9.7k overall, but I had 10k RDPS. That's because I provided Battle Litany and Dragon Sight Tether to the party. So if you hover over it, it'll show you given by. This means I gained RDPS by giving the party buffs. I actively, with the class that I was playing, gave the party buffs and made us do more damage. You can use this metric to see how effectively you're using buffs. So if you go to somebody else's log who plays the same job as you, say I wanted to figure out how to better play my Battle Litany and my Dragon Eye, I would probably look at like somebody like Whoops or Naomi Kanshin. I would go to one of their logs. I would compare the RDPS section. Okay, how much did they get from Litany in this fight? How much did they get from I? Why? Where did they cast them? Who did they cast them on? Was it just lucky? Like, did their partner just crit out of their mind? Stuff like that. You can use your own comparison and run it by somebody else's logs to improve the use of your raid abilities. The second part of this is damage taken by. This is considered like a tax. It really doesn't exist. The tax is something that gets in the way of somebody's mindset. Yes, it exists because I'm losing RDPS to the Volnut from the Mug from the Ninja or Searing Light from the Summoner. But if we didn't have the Volnup and the Searing Light in the first place, I wouldn't have done that damage. So like we would have done less damage as a team, and so it's irrelevant if it got taken away from me. The tax only matters if you're actually focused on parsing at the high ends. That's irrelevant to you. Just focus on the damage you've given, and to an extent, maybe the damage taken. Think about how you can feed someone else's buffs better, right? Maybe your damage taken by Searing Light is a lot lower than somebody else's summoner's Searing Light is getting. You can think about, okay, did they put it out early and miss some important parts of my combo? I could tell them about that, maybe get them to move it a GCD or two over. Vice versa, am I dumping my combo too early? Maybe I hit Stardiver before Searing Light was on the party, and so Stardiver wasn't affected by Searing Light. If I drift Stardiver over a couple of GCDs so it's in the Searing Light, I will do more damage. The party will do more damage as a whole, and the summoner will have a better parse because I fed their Searing Light better. Just stuff like that is stuff to think about with the damage done section of the site. While we're on the topic of damage done, because it is the first screen, and before we move on to reading the rest of the FFlog site, I do want to plug again XIV analysis. This is a great learning tool. I think anybody who's getting into a casual or mid-core static setting should be using this. Hell, I use this every single session for hardcore parse groups because it's just that invaluable as a learning tool. How it works is you go to xivanalysis.com, it'll bring you to this home screen. You just copy paste the URL from the log that you're trying to read, pop it into the bar here, boom, it gives you a list. I'm, Straybolt the Dragoon, so I'll click on my own name. Takes a minute to load because it's reading everything from the log, and then it comes up with a million different things for you to look at. One, your ABCs. Always be casting. I had a poor GCD uptime in this fight with 93.8%. That's me. That's remembering my ABCs. That's how I could do it better. Keep power surge up, keep debuffs up. That's like stuff like reminding you like your dot uptime should be as close to 100% as physically possible. Same with any self buffs. You should have them active as close to 100% of the time as possible. So there's just reminders for stuff like that. My positionals, I missed a bunch. I could have planned my true north better if I knew the boss was spinning or in a place where I couldn't reach that part of the boss, especially with Proto Carbuncle. He moves a lot in that fight. I should have planned my true norths better. Just tips like that. Obviously, don't die. Thanks, XIV Analysis. I never thought that death would affect my DPS so greatly. It shows drift on important things, and this will all be class-specific information, so like part of the core for Dragoon's damage is making sure that your high jump and Gareth Skogul stay pretty aligned and are being used as quickly as possible, because that affects your life cycle, which affects your core damage abilities like your capstones like Stardiver and Asterons. It talks through any weaving issues, missing Life of the Dragon. This is because we killed here, that's why I missed 2 full Nasterons in a window. Breaks down what GCDs you hit under your buffs. Gives you like a little checklist of what you should be hitting under the buffs. So like this was a good Lance Charge window. I hit everything I was supposed to. Awesome. Dragon Sight, I missed a couple of Spine Shatters. I should plan my Spine Shatter timings better in this fight. Battle Litany, the raid wide, how many players I hit with it. So I could go back in the log and say at 432 I missed a player. We can use the replay function, which I'll show you guys later in this video, to go back to 432 and see, was I out of position and missed this player, or was this player out of position and thus I missed them? Thank you, Windows Defender. GCDs you hit under your tincture, so maybe you can plan your tincture timing better to see, if I potted 1 GCD later, I wouldn't catch the disembowel, but I would have caught the wheeling thrust after this chaos thrust, stuff like that. And down here, the most crucial part of what I use XIV Analysis for, which is the timeline. This is awesome. It shows any raid buffs that the party had going out. It shows your pots. It shows a basic GCD timeline of exactly what buttons you hit in your rotation when, all of your different weaves, all of your different weapon skills and OGCDs, and stuff like Feint or Second Wind or Bloodbath mitigation usages like that. And you can just click and drag anywhere down the timeline. It's got timestamps at the bottom. This is fantastic for being able to compare and see visually what went wrong where in the timeline of a fight and how you can plan to fix it better. I think XIV Analysis is a fantastic tool. I'll drop it in the link below. Let's go back to FFlogs, the site, and continue showing you some useful things you can use for your self-improvement or your static improvement. Now, I'm not the most nuanced opinion with healing. It's the one job archetype I haven't played at endgame content. I know, how do I call myself a raider if I haven't played everything? But the next important tab we want to navigate to is the healing tab. I can't tell you everything about the healing tab, but I can tell you what I do know and what would be beneficial to know. First of all, healing parse. This matters a little bit more than the damage done parse, because yes, you'll be doing less healing per cast if you're not BIS. But if you're getting like a 0 on your healing or a 1 or a 2 or a 3, etc., even on like non-BIS runs, you could probably fix your healing. Um, Generally, like if you're getting greens or blues as a healer, you're on the right path. And then if you're getting any higher, you've got it made. And then if you're getting like pinks for your healing parts, you're probably almost healing too much for endgame content. It's weird how that works. Um, but the important thing to talk about here in the healing tab is the overheal category. So overheal implies that you put out healing when you didn't need to. Essentially, this is wasted HP. If everybody is full HP and you use like a cure 3 on the party, all of that health becomes overheal because they didn't need it, they were full HP. Overheal you want to avoid to an extent. Obviously you can't with some things like a size being what it's like 35-40 seconds or something now. You just want to be spamming that shit because it's also a damage source as well as a healing source. Sometimes people are going to be full when the size comes out. You're going to get overheal from that. What you don't want to see is stuff like 50% overheal. That means 50% of all of your healing casts were useless, essentially. Um, Ways you can avoid that is communicating with your co-healer, thinking about where the party needs heals during mechanics for a fight, or tank busters, raid wide stuff like that, or certain mechanics like soaking towers, and then discussing with your healer what resources you want to spend where. You are more easily able to do this in like a static setting when you have the same healer running the same comp, running the same fight with you, because then you can discuss like, hey, I'll handle the first raid wide into tank buster. We do this for the casual static that I'm on right now. Our Astro covers everything in the beginning because she has Earthly Star available there, um, as well as all of her innate rotation going off. I don't know the nuance, of course. I haven't played healer, but basically our Astro said, "Hey, I'm popping a lot of stuff at the beginning because I have to for my rotation. White mage, don't worry about it. Just glare the boss. It's fine. Just glare, and then you'll cover the next set when I'm out of resources and stuff like that." Um, Talking about that is ways that you use your overheal percentage and can cut it down. You can also see the graph up here with the HPS. You can see where peak times for healings were and why. And this just kind of helps you look for a timeline of the fight. Okay, like, 10 seconds in on Carbuncle here is because it's Sonic Howl into Ruby Glow, and then everyone's moving out to the corners, right? So you're getting 2 fat raid wides right off the bat, so the HPS is higher there. Talk about the resources you're spending there. Both of you don't have to be popping like Lilybell and Macrocosmos or something at the same time and Star going off, like then you're gonna have a ton of overheal. Um, that's about all I can say on the matter. Uh, Use your overheal percentage. Realize if it's pretty high that you need to talk about resource management with your co-healer, and then use the graph here or XIV analysis as timeline and see what's going off where in the fight and what resources are being used and how you can split them up better so that you can have more time to deal damage as a healer, right? Like if the Astro's covering everything in the beginning, the White Mage can be glaring more. That'll help the party's DPS go higher, leading to less strenuous DPS checks in the long run. And then vice versa, if the White Mage is all capped on resources ready to go and the Astro's out of things to use, they can switch to start Malefic real hard, light speed Malefic spam. White Mage's got us for healing. It just makes life that much easier. The next window that I think we can glean some information on that would benefit us for improvement, we can skip threat, buffs, debuffs. That can all be looked at through the XIV analysis anyways. I find XIV analysis is better for spotting stuff like that because you get an exact timeline of when it went out and when what GCDs and stuff were hit under it. So we can skip over here to deaths. Deaths is useful for gleaning information out of the damage taken, the healing received, and the over categories. For the over category, we'll start there. One shot implies that the first source of damage from it is what killed you. Like that's it. It hit you one time and you died. Whether you were killed by exact amount of HP, whether it was something like a failed mechanic, so like this Venom pool was because we didn't have um, our healer with us to soak it on a Topaz crystal during Ruby 5 or Ruby 6. So um, the Topaz crystal didn't take the poison, and instead we just got hit by the full stack. It one-shot us for a billion damage. You might see a tank buster that hits for like 150k unmitted, something like that. Um, Next in the over category is 3.3 seconds, stuff like that. That's for anything that's like a bleed or taking several hits from the same mechanic, i.e., the Ruby Reflection here was over 3.3 seconds because they got hit by two Ruby Reflections. The Ruby Reflection is the when the Topaz crystals go off and they bounce off the walls and they cleave the inner arena. That means they got hit by two of those, which means they got they went to like two of the wrong corners if you're doing Ruby 3. Or in this case, being this late in the fight, this was Ruby 6, they probably stayed in the bad area and then got blasted by a bunch because they hit multiple times in the same square. As for the damage taken category, this is useful to glean because if it's something like a bleed, a raid wide, or even a tank buster, you can find out exactly how much damage it did. So you can figure out, do I need to add 5% extra mit here? Do I need to heal somewhere in between the bleed? Do we need to make sure everybody's topped? Like, was it just we didn't have enough HP? Like, was it, damage taken 37k, but we know we have like 67k HP, so clearly this person wasn't topped? Well, in this one, this was Devour killing them, so that's a mechanical failure. But if you see a number like 37k and you know it's not a mechanical failure and it was just like a raid wide that did 37k and killed someone, that means they weren't topped. That's just useful information you can glean from the deaths tab. I also cherry picked another log for this one to show that bleeding will tell you in the damage taken section how much damage you took total, not how much damage you took per bleed tick. I died to 77k. That means somewhere in the 1.46 seconds of taking bleed ticks, I took 77k out of my 67k HP. That means if I didn't dodge a heal, as I see healing received none, either I dodged it or didn't go out. What it doesn't matter. If I was healed like after the first bleed tick, but before the second one over those 1.46 seconds, I probably wouldn't have died because it was only 77k out of my 67k HP. If I had like been healed 11k HP somewhere between the first and second tick, I would have been fine. That's just useful information to glean from the deaths tab and how you can work with your healers and tanks and other party members with their mitigation to find out what exactly is killing you guys during a fight and how to not die to it. The final tab that I want to bring up for using FFlogs website to do log review, analysis, or progression with yourself or your static for the purpose of improvement would be none of these top categories anymore. Everything else can be pretty much solved between the categories I showed you or using XIV analysis over here. Instead, next, I want to go up a little higher past the analyze section and go to the replay function. This will read everything from that log and paint it into a short little video for you of the entire timeline of the fight. I know my camera is blocking some of the controls, but down here at the bottom you have a whole control bar. You can control who shows up, whether you take out bosses, pets, NPCs, etc., change the speed at which it'll move through, any features, etc. like that. You just click the play button on the bottom left, and it'll play through the entire length of the fight with these little icons, and you can see, this is Proto Carbuncle, it's casting something, targeting the Gunbreaker here, the cast is on the right-hand side over here. This allows you to go in and really analyze exactly, like if you missed somebody with buffs, who was standing out of position, how they can fix it, if people are dodging heals, why? Are they in fucking Narnia being of his ranged, or was the healer just not close enough to the group when they cast it? It shows boss movement. I think I do something actually during this mechanic that's really useful to notice that I stole from somebody else by using the replay function. Right here. This is when the corners are the only safe place and there's poison puddles everywhere. And then we're going to get a cleave tank buster afterwards. Um, I move myself to the very edge of the puddle and use this little pixel perfect safe spot on the edge to signal that when the puddles go away, I'm going to be moving that direction to get to the rear positional of the boss because I'm a melee and I need my positionals. By physically seeing myself there, the tank can know to take their cleave buster the other way so we don't overlap each other. I figured that movement out because I looked at the replay function of a fight I did with Tazer, a tank that I've progged with. He was in my UCOB videos. He was on my Parse team this tier. He did this movement as the tank to signal which way he was taking the tank buster, and I thought that was fucking genius. And I would never have known he was doing that um, until I was looking at a replay function of one of our fights and was like, well, why is he moving out there? I paid attention to it in the next session and went, oh shit, that's genius. So it's things like that that you can glean from the replay function. And that's about all that I can go off of with the FFlogs website without making this like a 2-hour video of exactly how to analyze logs. I hope some of these tips were useful for you. I hope that you use this not to put anybody down, but to use it as a self-improvement tool for yourself and your static. There is a lot of information that you can glean to make progression easier, and I think that I know while add-ons are against the TOS and a kind of a gray area, I think they can be very beneficial for the game if used in ways like I mentioned in this video. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.